Okay, g'day guys, and welcome back to part 2 of the power rankings for Indigo's Season 3 in the APA. Apologies, this is out a little bit late, as you can probably still hear. My voice is a bit croaky. Had the man flu, so I didn't really want to record this sounding like death. But moving straight into this, we are going to start back with team that is ranked 11th. And that is, where is it gone? Too many teams down here too many teams to find. Apologies for this. Here we go. Bash and his Seattle Soul Blaze. And let's just quickly look in this team. I see a lot of options. Mewtwo, quick note, it is not allowed to run Life Orb because that is broken and it is actually stronger than Mega Mewtwo Y with the Life Orb, so that's ridiculous. So we got Mewtwo, Suicune, Mega Kang, Hydreigon, Cobalion, Slurpuff, Nidoqueen, Xurkitree, Alolan Marowak, Lurantis, and Dodrio. And first of all, looking at this team, I see this as a team of good mons that just don't quite have the synergy together. Um, I'm guessing that Bash probably got sniped a lot in this draft, and that's the reason we have this sort of situation. Mewtwo, phenomenal mon. Suicune, we all know what Suicune can do. It can be that Crocoon. I will say that Crocoon may be a little bit less effective in an Uber's draft than in a regular draft just because you have so many of those hard hitters. Like, for example, Mewtwo that can just break through that thing even after a couple Calm Minds. It just might make it building with it a little bit difficult, but I still think it's a fantastic mon. Mega Kang, obviously it's not allowed to run Seismic Toss because, like, that's ridiculous. Bulky Kang running Seismic Toss would break this format. Hydreigon, it's a great mon. Cobalion, Slurpuff. I see a lot of versatility here. Again, in terms of speed tiers, I do like this draft. It has Mewtwo, which is quite fast at 130 from memory. You've got Dodrio is sort of next. I think Mega Kang is based, like, it's not the fastest thing. So you got a lot of that mid range. So maybe that little gap between Mewtwo and, well, Cobalion's 108. So there's really, I mean, 110s are fairly common. So I don't really see Dodrio coming a lot because it is that last pick. It's tacked on. It's only worth a couple points. So maybe 110s could give this draft a problem, but then you got Unburdened Slurpuff that can just outrun them all. So it's a decent team. Looking at Fairy Dragon Steel, we got Slurpuff, Cobalion, and Hydreigon. Very nice core. Good, a bit of a ground weakness in like Xurkitree, Alolan, Cobalion, Nidoqueen, but you've got Hydreigon and Dodrio as your immunities, Lurantis as your one resist. So it's sort of, I feel like Hydreigon's pressured to come a lot to counteract the ground weakness from those four mons. I would say there's a little bit of an ice weakness in Nidoqueen, Lurantis, Dodrio, and Hydreigon, but two of those in Lurantis and Dodrio I don't see coming a lot, so it's not the biggest of issues. I do like how he's picked up Cobalion, a justified user, to counteract knockoff on other dark type moves that a lot of people will be teching to try and hit Mewtwo with, so you can get that nice justified boost. Fighting types as like hit Mega Kang, Hydreigon, and Cobalion, like it's a bit of a common weakness because I do see that, like, he's got plenty of resist, but I do see those three mons being core throughout the season for Bash. But other than that, it's a fairly well put together team. It comes in at 11th, as I said in the previous video. There was two sort of groups from here. There was like the 17 to around 9, which all could sort of be shuffled. Like, the ones down the bottom obviously aren't going to jump straight into 9th in some lists. But this is sort of, from here, I could see this going up a couple of places in some people's list and maybe dropping down one or two. It's just down to a bit of personal preference. But moving on, next team we have is Jimmy and his Duke Blue Dooms. And so he's got Kyurem White as his Uber, that thing, like, what switches into a Draco that isn't a dragon type. That thing hits phenomenally hard. is great. He's got web support with it in Smeagol and Galvantula, so the 95 speed tier, which usually would allow a lot of things to outrun and revenge or just hit hard and pivot out into something that might be able to take a hit, whatever that is, I don't know yet. Um, but Webs gives this thing a much needed speed tier boost. He's also got Mega Morwile, which Webs and Mega Morwile originally don't go to plan, but I mean, it does allow it to outspeed some of those mid tier sort of mons, like your base, like sort of around your mid tier mons, if it is running like max speed or close to it. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but so it's sort of the webs are there for Curum, the webs are there for like Chandelure, for Crawdont, although Crawdont has that priority Braviary works well under webs. You could go an offensive Gliscor. So Webs helps his team out quite a lot, but he also has a Trick Room option. He's got Kofag and Chandelure in setters, Cofagrigus, Morwile, Chandelure, you got Crawdont. Like, they're all great Trick Room sweepers, so that's another option that his opponent's going to have to prep for. Um, his Fairy Dragon Steel Core is Mega Morwile Curum White, which is phenomenal. He's got good removal, very reliable Defogger and Gliscor, which also gives him a switch into Hazard, to not Hazard status moves, which could plague the likes of Cofagrigus, Virizion, not so much Tentacruel because it can absorb a Toxic, but yeah, I think this team is very nice. It's defensive mons like Tentacruel, Gliscor, Virizion to an extent, Cofagrigus. So I maybe would have liked to see one more like really solid defensive mon, or perhaps a Wish Passer, considering the likes of Tentacruel, the likes of Kofag don't have the greatest recovery. But I just think the offensive power that comes with this team, and the fact that he can either run webs, can run Trick Room, and he's got like Azelf that doesn't require either. Things like Chandelure can set up a flame chart. Like, speed control is something that's very big in draft, and you look at Jimmy's team here, and it covers a lot of bases, as well as having two of the best like just breakers in the format in Mega Morwile and Curum White, and they are physical and special. So it's not, you can't over prep for one side, which I do like about this team. So moving on, after Jimmy, we had the Washington Braviaries and Rye. And he's got a team of Mega Lucario, Zapdos, Scolipede, Hooper Unbound, Alola, Darmanitan, Diancie, Chestnut, Piloswine, Zygarde 10%, Xatu, and Kecleon. And looking at this team, it looks phenomenal, apart from one thing, and it's speed tiers. And this team it's going to force a Scarfer, or going to force some speed pass from Scully too many weeks to push it further up the rankings, I think. But you've got the likes of Lucario, Hooper Unbound, Darmanitan, Zygarde 10%. They all hit very hard. Zygarde not as much, but such a spammable move that not a lot wants to switch in and take it. But I just see a lot of teams being able to run Adamant or Modest and just be able to get that extra bit of damage to overwhelm this team. It's going to force a Scarfer a lot. Like, he does have a couple ones that don't mind being Scarf, like a Scarf Darmanitan, a Scarf Hooper, Scarf Zapdos to an extent, like Scarf Zygarde. It does, so there is mons that don't mind being in that role, but I just think being forced into having a mon Scarf most weeks isn't the ideal thing for a draft. And like, he does have sort of that. He does beat the 110s out, the Lucario and the Scully. Protect on Scully to get that +1 is going to be nice, but if you have something that can wall it, speed control was my biggest disagreements with this draft. And I mean, he does have Lucario at his priority central, but yeah. So that's really my crux with the Bry. He does cover his weaknesses very well. He's got the likes of Diancie, Piloswine, Kecleon. So all those lower tier mons that are like sort of alright. He does pair with a Wish Passer in Alola. Not one of my favourite ones because it is quite passive, but Regenerator and Wish with such a fat HP stat, it can come in, throw a Wish, get out, recover some of the HP that it lost, and pass it on to something that wants to take it a bit more, like your Lucario, which can allow it to come in a little bit more aggressively and hopefully pick up a few more kills in Rise case. But yeah, that's really what my issue is with this team. The other thing was that like Xatu, Zygarde, Chestnut, Zapdos, all weak to ice. His ice resists in the likes of Darmanitan and Lucario don't really outside of Alomola, which is kind of passive, well, very passive, but don't really want to be switching into ice moves. His rockers are like Piloswine, Giancy. Yeah, so it's not. I don't know. This team has me conflicted because Lucario, Zapdos, Scolipede, Hooper, like they all hit very hard. Zapdos also has static, which could be something that's really great for this season, being able to paralyze some of those really fast Ubers that hit really hard to be able to be revenged by something a bit slower. But yeah, so we should move on now, and now we're up to 8th place. It is Zach and his Chicago Charizard X. And looking at this team, you probably want to put it a lot higher, and we did debate this. These last 8 picks, well, from 8 to about 5, we changed these around a lot. And originally, like, we've had these 4 guys here shuffled around quite a lot. The top 4 we sort of felt were set in stone, definitely the top 2. But yeah, so these guys could really be anywhere in the next 4. But looking at Zach's team, he has the Mega Salamence, Ferrothorn, Florges, Zeraora, Crocodile, Nihilego, Heracross, Slowking, Hitmonlee, Dusknoir, Magmortar, and Magneton. And this team is Fairy Dragon Steel Core in Salamence, Ferrothorn, Florges, I think is really great. His Firewater Grass, well, his Firewater Grass Core in Slowking, Magmortar, and Ferrothorn, like, it's alright. Fire's probably the one typing there that you can skimp on a bit, and he has in Magmortar, which I don't believe is the strongest, but it still can come and hit hard if a team has an exuberant fire weakness or something, or it needs to come. I like the Magneton pick because that Magnet Pull gets rid of Steel, something that Salamence does struggle with if it's not running Earthquake. Looking at this team, I see this team is very much geared around getting Salamence to get a lot of kills, and I think if Zach is going to have a successful season, I see Salamence picking up 20 kills or more. Like, I just see it doing that much work, and I think it's great. The way he's built around it, he has Salamence next to Zeraora, which is a great pivot, which can also take on some of those more annoying types that Salamence doesn't like dealing with. You got the Nihilego and the Heracross, but other than that, I see mons that work on chipping down or taking hits, like chipping them down, like Crook's case, or like in Zeraora's case, or in Magneton's case, with that sort of pivoting, that hit and get out and go into something fat like Ferrothorn or Florges or Slowking or a defensive Crook maybe. He's also got Wish Pass on Florges, which is a very good Wish Pass. So to pass into Ferrothorn, to pass into Crocodile, pass into Nihilego, who's even fairly bulky, to be able to take hits. The Dusknoir pick I'm not a huge fan of, just because I don't think it's the greatest mon, but I mean it gives it a ghost type, so things like Snorlax can't just run like Mono Return or Mono Facade sort of thing. So it's the one thing, like, I see the one issue I had with this team is I see certain mons being I only see a few mons being his win condition this season, like the likes of Salamence, Zeraora, maybe a Scarf Crook if it's put in the right position, like maybe a Nihilego, and very occasionally, maybe like once this season, a Unburdened Hitmonlee sweep. But so I see it being maybe a little bit easier to prep, considering the likes of Salamence and Crook share that ice weakness. Zeraora and Nihilego share that ground weakness. But so that's the only thing holding this team back, and like probably one more like real top tier threat is holding this team back from being that sort of top 5 team, in my opinion. But yeah, moving on, we now have if I can find it. Here we go. We got Arctic and his Jersey Jirachis. And this team, talking about that one more threat, he's got Lunala, Megalop, Tangrowth, Rabombi, Manaphy, Thundi, Eye, Bishop, Kurum, Quagsire, Talonflame, Rampardos, and Pineco. And I am not the right off the bat, I'm not the most familiar with Lunala and what it does, just because I'm not an avid Ubers player. But just looking at its stats, like its speed is decent at 97, like it's got good HP, good special attack, decent attack, decent special defense. So it sort of looks like this jack of all trades kind of mon. It can also set Trick Room from memory. So you got the Trick Room option, you got the Webs option. In Rabombi, you've got a couple of, like, you got Lunala at base 97, you got Manaphy at base 100, and then Kurum at 95, and Bishop in there that all appreciate the webs from Rabombi, so I think he's built around that well. The Megalop, I would have liked to have seen maybe a different normal type. Like, Megalop's phenomenal, but just in Lunala's case, being 4 times weak to Ghost, and Ghost being one of the best offensive types, only having one weakness and one immunity. One resist and one immunity, sorry. So his resist to Ghost moves is Bishop, and like that's fine, but Bishop isn't the most specially bulky, so I think moves like Shadow Ball are pretty free against Arctic here. Also, looking at it, he has, like, his rockers are a little bit lacking. Like, you got the likes of Bishop, Quagsire, Rampardos. Bishop, it doesn't always want to run rocks. Quagsire and Rampardos I don't foresee coming super often, and if so, I don't see Rampardos really wanting to run rocks. Pineco I see coming maybe once this season. It's a 1-point pick. I see why it's there. It's there for a bit of hazard stack if a team has little to no removal, or like if he has an easy way to check their removal or bait it out. But I don't know. I see his speed control is Talonflame and Rabombi, which both hit that 120 mark, and then Lop, who hits obviously that 130. So he's done quite well in his speed tiers there. As I've aforementioned, Webs, which can all boost those up a bit effectively because you're slowing the opponent down. But yeah, so looking at his defensive mons, he has Lunala maybe in a defensive role, but you really don't want to pigeonhole Yoruba. You want to have the pressure taken right off it to be able to run really whatever set the week calls for. So you've got Tangrowth, a defensive Kurum maybe, Quagsire, like maybe a defensive Manaphy or Bishop. So that's what I see with this team. I see, looking at its defensive capabilities, it screams hyper offense to me because there's a couple of mons that can take hits and then pivot out, but I just don't see the same hyper offensive attacking ability with this team. Like, Manaphy under webs I think is phenomenal, because the one thing that Manaphy I think holds it back from being a really good sweeper is the fact that you really want a Z Rain Dance to get that speed boost most of the time, which makes it a bit predictable because then you want the Tail Glow, and that's 2 turns of setup, and it only leaves you with 2 coverage moves. But having it under webs to be able to just come in, click Tail Glow, and then start throwing out big damage, outspeeding a lot of things, I think would be great. He's got quite decent removal. His Rapid Spinner is Pineco. Like, I'm not really going to count Pineco because like any Uber hitting that thing is going to blow it back. I would have liked to have seen a Rapid Spinner on this team just to be able to keep the webs up. Like, his rockers aren't the most reliable, so he doesn't want to be defogging his own rocks away. His removal is like Rabombi, Thunderous, Pineco, Talonflame, but no one wants to remove with Talonflame when it's got 4 times rock weakness. And speaking on that, he does have quite a few mons weak to rocks. He's got the Rabombi, he's got the Thunderous, the Kurum, the Talonflame, and the Pineco. Again, we'll put the Pineco aside for a moment, but so that does make it a bit harder, I think, when your removal is decent but not amazing, and you have mons like Kurum, Thunderous, Talonflame, Rabombi that really don't want to be coming in on rocks, more so Talonflame and Rabombi, because while Talonflame's ability becomes useless, and both those mons aren't the bulkiest. So yeah, that's Arctic's team. We're now moving on to the Fisks of the North, Sparse and Jack. He has a very powerful team here. He's a lot of options here. He's got Mega Mewtwo X, which that thing, Psychic Fighting. It's basically a Mega Gallade on steroids. Like, it hits that better speed tier. It's got that little bit more bulk. It's got that monstrous 190 attack. Doesn't quite get as good coverage. Like, if it had close combat, that would be phenomenal. But it gets Drain Punch, so and Zen Headbutt. But it also has like 150 special attack, which so it can run special. You've got Weavile, which is very fast. So you've got two great offensive, more physical mons. His first couple of picks that hit great speed tiers in 130 and 125. Four great types to have offensively as well in Dark, Ice, Fighting, and Psychic. And then he's got Excadrill there, which he does have Sand option, so that thing can be fast. It can set up a Swords Dance and put holes in teams, make it prep really difficult. Also gives him his first option of removal, which Weavile very much appreciates. He's got the Primarina, the Rotom Heat, Celebi, Staraptor, Latios, Gigalith, Garbodor, Kangaskhan, and Wooper to round things out. Again, Wooper, I'm guessing, was there because he had 1 point left over, and it's adorable. That's all I can really think. Yeah, Primarina, like, is very, very solid mon. Specs, Hyper Voice, like, there's still not like, admittedly we are in Ubers and there's a few more switches into that and checks, but not a lot. Really not a lot, especially when you've got Scald and it gets Energy Ball, so it's got some coverage there. Very nice hard hitter. Rotom Heat, a nice pivot, can defog. You've got that Overheat to be able to hit hard, as well as Volt Switch. Levitate, so it doesn't get hit by ground type moves. Celebi is nice. It's quite a good grass type. It's his second Psychic, and he's developing a bit of a U-turn weakness here, which kind of gets amplified by that Latios, considering like Rotom is his U-turn switch in, and that thing doesn't like coming in and taking hits because it doesn't have the most reliable recovery. He's got Staraptor, another like fast, great hard-hitting mon, like Reckless Brave Birds and Double Edges hit very hard. You got Latios, which very versatile. I'm not sure if he's like, haven't put all the Z move users in yet, so I'm not sure if Latios is Z. If it is, then it's a phenomenal Z user. It hits a great speed tier. The Levitate, it is his third Psychic type, which again, like, he's not going to appreciate Ghost type moves, considering Dark and Normal are the two types that like resist and immune Ghost, and his Dark and Normal so is Weavile, Staraptor, and Kangaskhan. Weavile doesn't want to be coming in to take any hits because it's very frail, and same with Staraptor. Those things want to be offensive mons, so that leaves Kangaskhan, really. And that's your second last pick. Kangaskhan is quite a decent mon. It's fairly versatile, and it can come some weeks, but it's his second normal, and I think you're seeing a bit of a theme here. He doubles up on a fair few types. His Fairy Dragon Steel Core is Primarina, Excadrill, and Latios, which is quite decent. His Firewater Grass is Celebi, Rotom, and Primarina, so again, fairly decent, but not gonna knock it out the park with WoW factor. So yeah, like, and then defensively, like, Primarina can take hits. Celebi's quite decent. Rotom, Gigalith, which we spoke about briefly in its Sand option for Excadrill, like Garbodor, a defensive Mega Mewtwo X, but why would you run that? It's got 190 attack, 150 special attack. You want to be making use of that and punching holes in teams. So it doesn't have the best defensive options, in my opinion. Like, there's something decent to work with. Kangaskhan is his wish passer for things like Gigalith and Rotom Heat and Primarina, which I think all would have much appreciated a wish passer that can come a little more regularly than that, but it's still alright. Is Rockers, look at Excadrill, Gigalith, like Celebi, so it's decent. Celebi is, you don't want to pencil hole it into that role. Excadrill doesn't often want to run rocks, but Gigalith is usually happy to, but you don't really want to see that coming, so it's alright. His removal is Excadrill, Rotom Heat, Latios, Staraptor, so it's fairly decent. Between one of those four mons, you could probably fit Defog on most weeks. I mean, admittedly, Staraptor and Rotom don't really want to be coming in on rocks to defog. He does have Toxic Spike support, which with Garbodor, which is always nice. But yeah, so it has a lot of power and a lot of versatility, but again, that sort of defensive capability is something that I find held it back from, again, being that top 5 pick, in my opinion. But I still expect this team to do very well, like it is in 6th spot for a reason. Teams are going to have a nightmare prepping for this because there's your Mewtwo, your Weavile, your Excadrill, your Primarina, a setup Celebi, a Latios, a Staraptor. All of those can hit phenomenally hard, and you want to have an answer for all of them, but at the same time have a way to break the team. And I think that's going to be a nightmare for some coaches. So that's why he is placed at 6th. Moving now into the top 5, we have... let's get rid of that. Apologies. Yes, I am doing this in one take, and I'm not going to record again because it may kill my voice. We have Quinto and his Charlotte Honchkrows. Looking at this team, he's got Xerneas, Mamoswine, Mega Slowbro, Metagross, Scrafty, Crobat, Goodra, Komala, Rhyperior, Blacephalon, Heliolisk, and Leafeon. And seeing that Blacephalon in that third last spot is really annoying because he sniped me off that. I would have really liked that one, but oh well. Xerneas, it can't use Geomancy because, well, that'd be broken. Teams could just draft like dual screens or subpass into a Geomancy Xerneas and it'd win games. It still hits phenomenally hard. It can defog, it can run specs, it's Scarf. Fairy's already a great offensive typing, and having Fairy Aura to boost it by like 1.2, I think it is, from memory. As I said in the first part, I'm doing this all off the top of my head, so apologies if I get one or two things wrong here or there, or miss something. Mamoswine's a great mon, always has been. Ground Ice is phenomenally offensive. Not fastest, but Ice Shard is a great priority on a monster attacking stat. Mega Bro is just fat, and it's a nice type in Water and Psychic. He does have a couple Psychic types, but I think they fit different roles, so it's not too bad. Metagross, it's a rocker. It can be defensive, like to absorb some hits. It doesn't have much recovery, so it's not the greatest defensive mon. But it's still, like, you can use it defensively, you can use it offensively with that phenomenal attack stat it has, access to Bullet Punch, agility, Power Up Punch, so it's a very versatile mon. Scrafty is a nice dark type, adequate fighting type, knockoff, it can run Assault Vest. It is 4 times weak to Fairy, but his only real other Fairy weakness is Goodra, so that's alright. He's got plenty of switch-ins. Crobat's nice and fast. It gives this team some speed control, which is much needed. It gives it a pivot. Crobat's very versatile. Its removal, it can be bulky, it can be offensive, it can be nasty plot, physical, it can be defensive, like Roost, Toxic. It's a very good mon, in my opinion. Goodra is, well, I mean, if you've ever watched any John Jr. videos, you'll know how great Goodra is. He does not shut up about that thing. It is phenomenally specially bulky. It can still fire out big hits, but specially and physically. It gets phenomenal coverage, like Earthquake, Power Whip, Fire Blast, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, like you can name it, this thing gets coverage. It's got Sap Sipper, which absorbs grass type moves, which you did have a couple of weaknesses to, like Mamoswine, Slowbro, Rhyperior, all didn't appreciate grass moves, so that extra resist is always nice. It gets gooey to be able to slow down things, which is very nice for his draft. And so it's a phenomenal one. Kamala gives him some removal, comatose, so it can absorb statuses. Admittedly, not one of my favourite mons, but I'd love to be proven wrong and see this little baby koala do some work. Rhyperior, another rocker, another ground type. A rock type like Rhyperior can be defensive, offensive. It's a pretty decent budget pick. Blacephalon is pretty good speed tier in 107 and 108 from memory, between 100 and 110 anyway. We've already spoken about how Ghost is one of the best offensive typings in the game. Coupling that with Fire, which is another great offensive type. Phenomenal mon, and if like you can run Flame Charge, and then if you start getting some beast boosts, or if you're running like the Calm Mind and your speed boost set, like this thing can run away with games. Heliolisk is a nice budget little electric that can volt switch around places, hit hard. It is the weather mon. It gets solar power, it gets rain dish, it gets sand veil, so gives him something against weather. And then you got Leafeon, which is like a wish pass, a budget grass. It's fairly bulky, doesn't get used much, and that's probably warranted considering it's not the strongest mon, but it's not a completely dead last pick. So I mean, Kamala, Leafeon, Heliolisk, Rhyperior, I don't see coming super often, but they're still mons that can come and should force some prep, and if they're not prepped for and they do come, they can do some work with. One thing I will say is Leafeon and I think Kamala gets Wish. Don't quote me on that because I could just be crazy. If so, they are his Wish passes with a lot of mons that do like to would appreciate it. Yes, Kamala does get Wish. I'm not going insane. The likes of Xerneas, Scrafty, Goodra, Rhyperior, Metagross, they all love appreciating wishes. If you haven't guessed, I love wish passes in draft. I'm a bit biased towards them, but I think they're phenomenal, and they can take these sort of lower end budget bulky mons, give them a bit of recovery, and like turn them into real pains to prep for. So his clerics, he's got Leafeon there, so I mean, it's not the best, not the worst. Xerneas is a cleric as well. So yeah, it's a phenomenally offensive. Does share like his rockers or Mamoswine, Metagross, Rhyperior. Why am I thinking Scrafty gets rocks? I don't think it does, but I could be wrong. Yeah, Scrafty's not a mon I've used in a very long time, not since like Gen 6 or something. So let's take a look if Scrafty gets rocks. No, it doesn't. Why did I think it did? But yeah, so Metagross, Mamoswine, and Rhyperior is rockers. Metagross and Rhyperior more so than Mamoswine like running rocks, but Mamoswine doesn't hate it, so it's not the worst. His removal is Kamala, Crobat, and Xerneas. As I've said before, you don't really ever want to pencil hole your Uber into it, so it like Xerneas doesn't mind it per se, but doesn't love running it. Crobat and Kamala, though, usually can find room for it on their sets, so it's not the end of the world. So yeah, it's the other thing is ground and rock type attacks. He doesn't really have anything that resists both of those outside of Leafeon, but it's a Leafeon. So yeah, I think it's top 5 for a reason. And going into these next 4 teams, I think you'll see why we didn't place it in 4-1. And now on to what would be the 4th place team, only because it's like we're doing it this way. But I'm gonna say this is equal third because, well, I'll explain why when we get to the next team why this is an equal third team. And we have Aurora here with her Snowpoint City Ninetales, and this is, without even going into this, this is hyperoffense.team. You got Mega Gengar, Garchomp, Milotic, Infernape, Comfey, Necrozma, Kartana, Azumarill, Type Nom, Crow, Raichu, and Cutiefly. So it's not completely like hyper offense every week. Like you got Milotic, you got Necrozma, Comfey to an extent. You can run defensive Garchomp, Perish Trap Azumarill, like Type Null. But it is definitely a hyper offense team. Like Mega Gengar is going to trap things, going to just remove them. For the rest of his team, Infernape hits very hard, hits nice speed here, great pivot. It's another mon that I myself would have loved, and I was going to take it. I think round 4 or 5. I was close to a wheel in the draft, so I was going to take it, but then Aurora took it, and I had to rethink things. Big sad. But yeah, so great mon, along with Necrozma, who can also be offensive, defensive, physical, special. It can set rocks. Photon Guys is such a great move. It's just a phenomenal mon. Kartana, like, that thing has, 180 attack. It's fast. Yes, it obviously will get blown over by a small breeze on the special side, but it can still run away with games by getting speed, some beast boosts. Azumarill, like, that thing gets belly drum up, or like belly drum Azumarill can just sweep teams. Just like a lot of his mons. It can also be Perish Trap, so you come in, go into a check, thinking you're going to be like, okay, I can absorb a hit from this belly drum Azumarill, and it just chucks out a Whirlpool and then a Perish Song, and you're like, oh, there goes one of my walls, and his hyper offense team goes into work from there. You do have Milotic, which is a phenomenal mon. I love it. It can soak hits on the physical. The special side, you got the Flame Orb, Marvel Scale set. You've got the special set. It can run Haze. Like, you can run Z Rain Dance with competitive coming in on a defog, which is something I saw Wolf do, and never thought of that set before. That just makes me love this mon even more. It's something else that it can do. You got Type Null, which can run U-turn, Eviolite. It's very bulky, like same stats apart from speed as Silvally. It doesn't get anywhere near as much coverage, but you run Eviolite on that, and it's like 1.5 times as bulky. Murkrow with like prankster shenanigans. Cutiefly, it brings webs, and that's literally it. It's a 1-point mon. Raichu, I like those last 3 to 4. I don't see coming a lot. I'd see Type Null coming a lot more if it was not a super offensive team. So that's sort of the reason that this team wasn't outright third. It was those last 3 or 4 mons I didn't see coming to a lot of games, which meant that you could sort of prep a little heavier on those first 8, knowing that probably 6 of those 8 or 5 of those 8 were definitely going to come. It didn't force as much prep in that way, but I mean, you've got a Trapping Gengar, you've got a Garchomp, you've got a Milotic. Like, it's got some phenomenal Z move users on this team. So yeah, that's all I can really say. Like, you look at it's Fairy Dragon, Steel Core, and Kartana, Garchomp, and Comfey. Now, Comfey might look like an odd pick to take 5th round, but you get a couple of Carmines up, and then like Draining Kiss, Giga Drain, Synthesis, like that can just go through a team. And Comfey sweeps are a real thing. You got like Steals and Poisons give it trouble. Like, you've got Garchomp for that. You've got Mega Gengar, which makes killing off its checks a lot easier because it can trap them and just dispose of them. So yeah, I think this is a phenomenal team. And now we're moving on to the team that it's equal third with. And just a disclaimer, yes, this is my team. No, I did not rank it. I got Zaki, I got Panther, and I got Lapis to rank this for me. I spoke about the team and what my mindset was going into it. Yes, you can see on the screen that Shy has added nicknames in for all my mons. they've made the video now. Oh well. But yeah, so just a disclaimer: I didn't rank this team. I didn't rank my own team. I will talk about it now. What I like, what I dislike. But yeah, so my theme with this draft was I like playing bulky offense, and so I was just going to go for some value picks. As you probably heard in these first two parts, I love saying what has been sniped from me. So I grabbed Mega Mewtwo Y round one, and I think that is I had third pick overall, and I think that's top five Uber. Like that thing has 194 special attack, 130 speed. Like it gets Psy Strike as its signature move, so it hits on the physical side. Well, hits on the physical side as well. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. So like checking this thing is not the easiest by any chance. It gets a couple Carmines up, and unless you have like a fast mon that can hit on the physical side with a dark or a bug or a ghost type move, then you can just get 6-0'd by this thing because it gets recover. It's also quite bulky, so it doesn't have to run. It can run a lot of HP and SPDF, but still hit a lot harder than any other wall would. And then coming around, I've got Zygarde and Clef. So I had third pick overall, so I was pretty close to the wheel. And these two mons were still left on the board in a 24-man draft in the second and third round. And I've never used Zygarde before, and I'm like, this is a phenomenal mon. I'm going to give it a shot. Everyone knows what it does. It can run the dual dance. It can be a Z move user. It's 1,000 arrows, so it can set up. It also gets some nice coverage. Like it's fairly bulky, so especially physical ice moves might not even kill it without a Yachi. It's just a phenomenal mon, and in most leagues it's in, it grabs a lot of kills. Clefable was something that I was really excited because we have all these Ubers and a lot of them like to set up, and so having the ability to have an unaware mon that is still fairly bulky and can eat hits, something like a Mega Salamence comes in and it's at +2, most teams it'd just go through like that. But Clef can come in, it's effectively at 0 and you can fire off some hits, throw up some wishes. It's the first wish passer on the team. Silvally I grabbed round 4, probably a bit early. But this thing was 8 points, and an 8-point Silvally is an extreme value pick, in my opinion. So I had to snap it up. We got Umbreon there as another wish passer, Conqueror there to be able to hit hard, Typhlosion for that eruption shenanigans. It also has another couple cool sets that it can run, Lycanroc Dusk, and then from there, Lycanroc Dusk patches speed tiers a bit. Tough Claws hits phenomenally hard. It gets its own signature Z move. Rock type is fairly decent offensively. We've got 3 rockers from memory on this team. We've got Clefable, Lycanroc, and Empoleon, 2 very reliable, and 1 that doesn't really want to run it, although there is the Suicide Lead Lycanroc that gets run in some lower tiers. Defoggers, we've got Silvally, Empoleon, Golbat, and then Blastoise for Rapid Spin. And then there's a lot of lower tier bulk like Tangela, Blastoise, Golbat, Silvally, Umbreon, Empoleon, Blastoise, Empoleon, Conkeldurr, Silvally all appreciate a wish. So yeah, that was what I was going. And the other thing is looking at this roster of 12, there's not a mon here, like maybe Tangela, Typhlosion, you don't see coming a lot, but it's still a mon that could come any week. There's no mon on this roster that you say isn't going to come. Like, it's just, unless it has a horrible matchup, of course, like unless Tangela's going up against 4 fire types. But yeah, there's no mon on this roster that's sort of just a there to fill a space. So yeah, I'm not going to talk too much on my own team because that's not what this video is about. But yeah, moving on now, these are our top 2 teams, and god damn it. And they were top 2 quite convincingly. Everyone that I spoke to about this video said these guys were top 2. There's a little bit of discrepancy about which order, but I think this order is what we have right. And first up, we have Noons with his Alaskan Articunos in second place. And he has Celesteela, Mega Diancie, Hippowdon, Decidueye, Starmie, Snorlax, Drapion, Aselgor, Torkoal, Venusaur, and Reshiram. So, let's start off. We've got Celesteela, Diancie, and Reshiram as his Fairy Dragon Steel Core, and that is ridiculous. Like, if this was a normal draft, like, take Reshiram off, you'd go, what's going on? How has he got Selly, Mega Diancie, together? That is a phenomenal pairing. He's got Hippo, Decidueye, Starmie. Like, he's got some great removal in, like, Torkoal, Decidueye, Starmie. All very reliable, all don't mind running Rapid Spin / Defog. He's got good rockers in Hippowdon. Diancie also has Magic Bounce. He's got Spike support and a Selgor, which also gives him a nice speed tier. He's also got some low tier Sun in Torkoal and Venusaur as an abuser. So Venusaur can also absorb. Well, he's got 2 Toxic Spikes absorbers. But Venusaur can get in the sun, set up a growth, and just win or punch holes. Starmie, Mega Diancie. You got Reshiram, a Selgor coupled with that Sun pair gives him great speed tiers. He's got great bulk in Celesteela, Hippowdon, Decidueye, Starmie, Snorlax. Drapion can be bulky, Torkoal can be bulky. The one thing I will say is the one thing I see missing from this team is maybe a Wish Passer. As yes, I sound like a broken record, but the likes of Sally, Drapion, Torkoal, Mega Diancie would love to have one of those because they don't get their own recovery and they are still quite bulky, so I think that would have made this team, he's got one empty spot. If you threw in a Licky Licky or a low tier Wish Passer like that could come, weeks the likes of Torkoal, Sally, Mega Diancie, Drapion, etc. had an exceptionally good matchup. I think this team would be phenomenal and tick every box for me. His Fire, Water, Grass is Starmie, Torkoal, Venusaur. I personally quite like Torkoal. I think it can be very bulky. It can set the sun, sets rocks, and it rapid spins. It's for the value it is. I think it's great. Reshiram is it's Reshiram. It's basic. It hits really hard. It's got a very nice type in Fire and Dragon, so that hits very well offensively. The likes of Steels and Fairies that want to take Dragon hits don't really want to take Fire. It's weak and then neutral to Fire respectively. It gets Blue Flare, Draco Meteor. It also gets Roost in recovery to go with its 120 speed F, 100 defense, and 100 HP. It's 90 speed tier. It gets Turbo Blaze, which is basically Mold Breaker, so Sturdies, Marvel Scales, Multi-Scales, all that, just irrelevant to Reshiram. Its Fire-type moves in the Sun don't have a switch-in, because those switch-in potentially take a Draco, and Primarina resists both of its stabs, and if there's any other Fairy Waters that I'm missing, or a couple Mons here or there. But yeah, so phenomenal Mon. Noons went very well last season in Indigo, and I see a repeat of that happening here. I see some big victories, him just being able to out-pressure or outlast. He can run a super offensive or quite a defensive build. It ticks all the boxes. But it didn't quite make first, and god damn it, I gotta stop doing that. And you'll see why when I go on to this team. And we have... Here we go. Coming in number 1 spot, we have Frost and his Hollywood Hawlucha, making a return back to the APA. And looking at this team, can I just say, collectively as an Indigo group, how did we allow Megazard to go round 3? Megazard X is a phenomenal Mon. That Dragon Dance set forces so much prep. It can also run bulky with Will-O-Wisp and Roost. It can run a mono attack set. It can run Belly Drum if you're facing a slow team. Marshadow is already one of the top 2 Ubers. He had pick number 2. So Marshadow went second overall. It is one of the top 2 Ubers. It is Technician. It gets Spectral Thief, so it can steal stat changes. It is... Anyone who has played any Ubers, whether League, whether it's Ladder, knows how phenomenal Marshadow is. And it is yeah, it's typing in Ghost fighting. I've already said I've said numerous times how Ghost is the best typing offensively in the game. Fighting is also a phenomenal type because what two types resist Ghost or are immune to it? It's Dark and Normal, and they're both weak to fighting. So there's not a lot that can take on Marshadow, especially if it manages to Spectral Thief some stats. It's a great speed tier. It gets bulk up. Then you got Jirachi, who is like super versatile. It can run that Paraflinch set. It can run Defensive Wish. It can run a Pivot set. It can run Scarf. You got Megazard, we've already spoken about. You got Togekiss. So between Togekiss and Jirachi, I could potentially see some rage happening here with Paraflinching. His Fairy Dragon Steel Core and Togekiss Zard and Jirachi is phenomenal. Then Greninja, more great speed control to go with his Marshadow, and his Zard and Jirachi are up there. You've got Diggersby, which just hits so hard. It can set up an agility. You can run Banded Scarfed. It's a pivot. It's a good ground type. Ground and Normal are great types to hit with. It's got Serena, which can again be a pivot. It's immune to priority. It can U-turn out. It can rapid spin. You got Rotom Frost, which, although it's not the greatest mon, it does give him an ice type, gives him an electric type, gives him a defogger. Like Blizzard Spam can be very nice against a lot of teams, especially if you remember back to the last part. I did say that a couple of them had ice weaknesses, like inherent ice weaknesses. You got Venomoth, which, if you don't prep for a Venomoth, it can Quiver Dance and win a game. It also absorbs Toxic Spikes. It has, I think it's Tinted Lens, the ability that makes not very effective moves hit a bit harder, which is great for Bug and Poison because they have a lot of resists collectively. You got Gastrodon, which is an Ice Water immunity, which his team appreciates because he has some very physical threats that don't want to take a Scald. Gastrodon can deter teams from going for that. Aerodactyl, so more speed control. It's a rocker. It hits hard. It gets Roost, so it could potentially be a bulkier set. And then you got Licky Tongue, which, I mean, it is his last pick. I think it was a 1 or a 2 point pick, but I don't mind it for that price because it can wish. It's got a decent HP stat. It's not the best. It gives him his third wisher with Togekiss and Jirachi. I didn't think anyone had more than 2 wishes. So yes, not to sound biased, that is not why I put this team in first. But it's also bulky. It can get some nice coverage moves. But yeah, the crux of this team is it has way too much power, but also the ability to run a lot of defensive. In mons that can be run defensive, Serena, Jirachi, Zardex, Togekiss, Rotom, Frost, although not the best typing, it has the stats to be able to do it, like Gastrodon, Aerodactyl, Licky Tongue. But then you look at his offense, which is Marshadow, Jirachi, Zardex, Togekiss, Greninja, Diggersby, Serena, Venomoth, Rotom Frost to an extent. They all can hit so hard, and this team should not have been attainable in a 24-man league, and that is why it is at number 1. I don't think there's any more to say about it, other than the 12 guys that he faces regular season have their work cut out for them. And yeah, thankfully I'm not one of them. Otherwise I would have no idea where to start with this team. But yeah, that's going to be everything for this video. My voice is very much about to go, but I will see you guys in the next video where we will have more of this Indigo stuff coming to the channel, along with all the other stuff that we upload, and one more league that I will be introducing within the next week or so, which I'm very excited to bring to you. But other than that, I am out of here. Bye, guys.